Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, ladies, we have Beth Kromner. What we focused on this episode, which I think you're going to absolutely love, is talking about turning vacant properties, vacant commercial properties, into residential units. And we talked a lot about what we really got into specifically is what type of properties to even look for. What are the characteristics? What's that criteria of the type of buildings and the type of areas that you should be focused on? And she gave so many great specific tips to get there.
And here are the reasons why we're talking about conversions, right? With COVID, we have lots of empty office spaces. So that's a problem for the city. That's a problem for the landlords. And we can see that's clearly a problem for the people that can't find rentals. So it's all around a great opportunity. And the more that inflation goes up, the interest rate goes up, more opportunity we have, according to Beth. So she breaks that down for us. Wow, you can't miss this one. Enjoy it.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, where our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. We do that twice a week, and we love what we do, right, Andressa?
Yes, indeed.
So we have Beth Kromner here today. We're really excited to have you on here today, talking about really just taking what's vacant, non-producing assets to making them in their highest and best use, right? So excited to jump into that topic with you. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and being here with us and our audience.
I am super delighted. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. So we're going to jump into Beth and our topic here in a moment. But as we always like to do, we like to get connected to all of you, share something that we've been learning or experiencing, right, Andressa, on a moment-to-moment daily basis along with you on this journey. So I'm up this week to share something very quick with you. So I had the pleasure of leading a mastermind session recently with our InvestHER EXP team. For those who don't know, we do have an EXP team in Oregon. They're an amazing group of women who are agents who are looking to not just build and help other investors and their clients, but more importantly, they're about building their own wealth, right? And that's what's unique to our team. As they grow their agent portfolio, they're also growing their own portfolio. So what's cool about what we did on this mastermind is I was talking about raising private money, which is a topic near and dear to me. But what was really cool is I was giving a few different options, right? Because we've really raised money. I've shared this before and how we really scaled our portfolio, me and my husband. On the lending side, yes, on the debt side, of course, but also more on the equity side, where we really partnered on small scale, 2 single family homes to hundreds and hundreds of units, right? So as I was sharing something about equity, one of the women on our team kind of, jumped in and she's like, I never thought about how I can actually partner with, the investor that I've been sourcing, because all she's been doing is working with this one particular investor and sourcing deals, and she's been getting commission. But she's like, I never thought about even the opportunity where I can, really talk to him and really think about how do we create a win-win here, where maybe we really do even more together. And I get a piece of the equity in addition to the commission. I never thought about that. And so I wanted to share that. I just thought that was, things that we take for granted as we talk about positioning and how to structure deals. There's so many things you can ask for. There's so many things to the world is your oyster, as I like to say, as long as it's legal. Of course, we don't want to encourage you to do something that's not legal. But my point in saying that is, for the agents listening, obviously you have to be, mindful of the agreement that you've signed, and being a real estate agent, you have to make sure you're following all the rules. And I'm not an agent, so I can't tell you all the rules. But what I can say is that, being a partner and being involved in projects on a deeper level than commission is how you're going to build your wealth, Bottom line, I know that much. So the thought process is to think about what you bring to the table and really to make sure you're aligning with the right, not all of your clients, but what an opportunity if you start to think about who you're working with, how you partner, in addition to be an agent and obviously following what you need to follow. It's just neat to see the light bulb go on for her. And it's neat to kind of start to see, what happens from that, right? So I just wanted to share that for those
Let me ask
listening.
you a question, Liz.
Yeah.
Do you think that the investor thought about it?
Oh, I don't know. I probably not.
I think yes.
Yeah.
Every single investor thought about it and came to a conclusion of, I hope they don't think about it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Let me just keep the realtors doing their quote unquote their job, feeding me, and we are all happy family, right? But we are waking up all the realtors.
Yeah.
Right? Because they are so important. They are bringing the leads. Many times those are off-market deals.
They add a lot of value. Yeah.
Right? They add a lot of value. And you can think about it. Who has the upper hand, really?
Correct.
Who? If they are not sourcing their own deals, investors not sourcing their own deals. And of course, I'm not saying that, okay, you're just going to offer a equity partnership in the first person that you did business with.
Of course.
But you have been doing business with somebody for years. You know their values, you align with their values, you have helped this person to grow their own portfolio. Now it's time to take the relationship to another level. And I encourage all the women that are listening here that have built other people's, portfolio to start having those conversations now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're worth so much. And you are worth so much. You have so much to give. If you haven't heard that, we're telling you that you have so much to give. I don't care who you are. And just knowing the women in our community, what women stand for, you have so much to give. So with that, and it's just a pleasure to see these women on our InvestHER EXP team, right? Grow and thrive. It's really neat. So if what's not working for you in your own brokerage, come join us, come play with us, come grow your wealth. It's really, really, really important to me and Andressa. We're very, very committed to that. So Beth, thank you so much again for being on our show. Here's how we want to kick it off. What lesson has taken you the longest to learn?
Well, I think the lesson that has taken me the longest to learn is a bit about what you were just talking about, is that oftentimes when I've invested in real estate and made choices, I kind of defer to other people. Like it could be a business partner or a guy in commercial real estate or some financial advisor, and I'd listen really carefully, which is, there's nothing wrong with getting information and listening, but I would discredit my own point of view to say, I didn't know. And finally, at a certain point, I turned it around and I'm like, how come I don't know? I do know. I have invested. I am smart. I can see market trends. And it took me quite a bit of time to say that all these other guys, they don't have a corner on great ideas and good investments. And I know I turned the corner when our financial advisor told me, he's like, yeah, you know how to do this better than I do. So take your money out of the stock market and put it in real estate, because you know how to do it.
That's great.
So, yeah.
What a humble person to say that, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we grow smarter and we gain experience, we start listening less to the voice in our head and pay more attention to our gut and owning who we are. And then I think that we're just living the life that we're meant to live, right? Freely and then in abundance, truly. But it starts with us, right? Starts with us. I'm very excited about this topic because, there's market trends, but I don't think anybody could prevent what we had to go through during COVID, right? And the shift in the mindset, the behavior, the assets, people working from home, and the changes that companies had to make. A couple of companies realized, oh, great, it actually works. Others said, no, we're going to go back to the office. But the bottom line is that you open up also an opportunity from one side, right? Some landlords that have commercial properties really got hurt, certain assets, because they were empty. So that's what we are talking about now. How can we look at those empty spaces that certain companies, certain clients don't want that anymore? And I really like your approach, and we never talked about it in our podcast. So let's break it down, Beth. So are there preferences into where investors, what type of office spaces or empty spaces, right? Because I'm not gonna generalize into office, right? Like a commercial building. What are the sweet spots, and what are the ones that you would recommend to stay away?
Sure. So I think that's the essential question, because we can hear, and I hear all the time about how office or empty commercial space conversion is too prohibitive. And yes, that is the case in some instances. So let me start with saying what does not generally work well in a conversion. And it's not that it can't happen, it's that we're all about the return on investment is super strong and effective. So what is not a good conversion is a massive office space, high rise, really big in our inner cities. Those don't work very well. What does work is all of the empty commercial office space and retail space that are in our smaller downtowns or in some of our downtown towns in big cities. So what we're looking for is a footprint that's not massive. Why is this important for a conversion? Is because in a residential unit, we need to have windows, we need to have doors, and we need to have light. Those are laws. And so if you have an office space that's super deep, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get a window, light, indoors. But every single office space that has a relatively smaller footprint is going to be excellent for a conversion. The other great thing about commercial real estate is that the codes are higher than residential. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. People might say residential code should be much higher, but it isn't. The reason why commercial is more rigorous is because people are coming in and out of it all of the time. So what we're really looking for is an ability to put windows and doors into a residential unit. So not huge. One conversion that we're working on right now has we can put about 10 units into the bottom level, and super easy to do. I say easy, we're just put in walls and bathrooms and kitchens, but it's not impossible.
Is there also a sweet spot in terms, you said 10 units, right? Is there a sweet spot in terms of the ratio of bedrooms and baths?
No, there really isn't. Oftentimes when I'm doing this work with people, we're looking at what is the rental market, what's the demand. If there's huge demand for a 2-bedroom, and we're going to get a big differentiation in that, then we can configure it that way. But what the sweet spot is right now is a lot of people who might be working from home or working from home sometimes. And so what they love to have is a 1-bedroom plus a really nice place to work. And because we're doing this in real time, and how people are living in their apartments has changed dramatically, we have the ability to say, here's a nice 1-bedroom, great office space in a downtown where people can work at home, perhaps go to an office part-time if they want to or need to, but they're in downtown with their own office. It's the shortest commute.
Question in terms of because I think this is such an important topic for so many reasons, especially as we record this. One of the biggest challenges, usually it's, I can't find money, I can't find deals. Right, those are the 2 biggest issues for people as investors, right? And so right now, yes, there's always opportunity for money, but deals, a lot of women are not penciling out on their properties, right? They're finding deals are just not working, and for a lot of different reasons. So finding different ways to get into projects like this is critical. And I'll say that too, right? To people. So I'm an investor and I now want to get into converting. I'm taking your advice. I'm not going into a massive office space. I'm going to go to is this like a medium sort of sized city? Like, give us some examples, like good cities to look at, type of size. Is it more size? Is it demographic? Is it all of those things? Just curious to kind of get more into the nitty gritty of the market itself, because then we can look at the building and then say, okay, this is an opportunity. And I think that's what I want women to walk away with today, right? To say,
Sure.
Okay, this, and this, and this, boom, now I can start looking.
Right. So it's not necessarily the type of city, it's the part of the city. So if you're in a very large city like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, there's usually a commercial place downtown that there's massive high rises. Then exogenous or a little bit outside of that might be on places that were already at mixed use, which means the top was residential, bottom was commercial. Those are my absolute favorite because the top has already been configured to be residential, so it's the right size. I have yet to find a city that doesn't have mixed use and whatnot. And there's two things that have happened. Office space, right, the demand is completely not there anymore, but retail has diminished as well. A lot of cities said, you can only have residential on the top floor, you have to have commercial on the bottom floor. That is changing dramatically right now because there's no usage of the bottom floor for offices in oftentimes retail. What's fascinating about this space, which I love, is that we have tons of empty commercial space, office space. It's been vacant. There's no prospects of it becoming occupied. It is a distressed asset. Many of these people cannot rent. They cannot sell it as is. So we have on one side, the seller or the owner of the property has a diminished value. And we come in or we advise people or we help people purchase knowing full well we're going to convert it into residential, which is a much higher value. And that's what I love about this, is that the seller is thinking about it in one way and the buyer is a completely different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does, because when you're selling, right, if you have an asset over there that it's empty, not producing, you have a problem. You have a big problem in your hand. I remember, converting. Oh gosh, my first conversion. How fun was that? I told, probably you guys heard this before, but it was a commercial at the bottom in 1950s, was a candy store and 2 apartments on top. So the goal was basically convert the bottom, right? The area was all residential. The triplex was distressed. I can tell you, I think that if the community had eggs and tomatoes, they would have thrown that in my face, right? But when I was going through that, right, because they hate it, and I was like, what part you were hating it? I don't understand. So you want a commercial? No, we don't want commercial. All right, so I'm trying to convert this into a 2-bedroom. No, there's a lot of construction. Okay, so do you want it to be distressed as it is? No, we don't want it because the windows are falling on us. Right, so you don't want change, I guess, right? So the reason why I'm sharing this is because I would have done everything all over again if I knew the return on the investment that was about to happen to me. When I was going through it and all the hurdles, all the zoning with attorneys, and when I was going through that, I was like, what a freaking nightmare. I want to just sell this. I want to sell it. I want to look at it. The neighbors are angry or whatever that is. I'm trying to help the neighborhood to get better, and they feel that I am, attacking it or whatever. I did not have the skill set and the vision that I have today. And I think that that it is so important. I will have done that a million times with what I know now. And I think this episode is so important because there's a huge opportunity out there. There's a huge opportunity out there. And for all the ladies that are listening that can't find opportunities, now I'll challenge you after listening to Beth to start looking at your market with different eyes. So Beth, I want to be realistic with people, right? Because they are going to have to untie knots. And I love untie knots because that's calls opportunity. What would be the first step? Is it to understand the zoning first, to get familiar with that? What would you say besides, okay, I found this property over here. What is my next step?
Sure. So the first step is to find the property, which is not difficult right now. These are in abundance. And the next step is to really look at it, as I had said, about how easy is it going to be to convert. And then what you spoke about, the third thing is, up to this point, municipalities and cities and counties have done everything in their power to block change, right? They don't want to change zoning. And oftentimes they still have on the books that you cannot have residential on ground level in a downtown. This could be their zoning. I would never stop there. Before I purchased a property, I would go visit the city and say, your downtown is completely vacant. You have a huge housing crisis. We need more rental. I want to put residential housing in this bottom level. And by the way, I will probably put it at market or under market value. I have seen cities capitulate, just like fall over and say, yes, we will allow this, because they have a huge problem.
Yeah.
They have vacancies left and right downtown, and this is a terrible thing. And so the third thing I do before I even contemplate purchasing is get a test of the town. Just some towns will be like, I'm going to fight this till my last breath. In other towns, they just hug you and say, thank you.
As a savior, you either going to be a
solution.
savior or
Yes.
or like a demon, one or another.
Yeah, so I absolutely love challenges, but I also prefer challenges I can assess and win. And what I love is going into a place where it appears that the city or the town won't let you do something, but you found out they will, and then purchase under those circumstances.
Love that. I want to piggyback on that, because we have a lot of our, it's interesting, the last couple of weeks, we had a few of our Strive members ask the exact question of, how do I approach the zoning officer? I met the mayor of X town and I really want to talk with them. And, we all know at the end of the day, building rapport with these folks and seeking to understand and solving their problems is honestly the first thing. And then positioning our projects to solve their problems is what we need to do. So I'm really curious, because I bet you can give us some insight into, like, not just questions to ask, but I love the idea of, like you're saying, like, what are their challenges? I mean, to be able to offer market rate rentals in their downtown with just vacant property, that can't be a good thing for their tax base. And it can't certainly be a good thing for, just their growth. Are there other, questions to ask, ways to build rapport, ways to kind of get a sense very quickly, is this a town I want to do business in or not? Because all towns are not created equal. And you're right. I know certain towns we've invested in that it's more, they should be hugging us. And instead of they're putting challenges in front of us. And so it makes us not want to do anything else there. So any other characteristics of these zoning officers or these folks you're meeting with, or questions to ask that very quickly before you get down the road, you'll assess like your criteria, like, not going to work here. Any other ways to kind of look for that, to like not waste women's time?
Yeah, one of the first things is to read the local newspaper and find out what everybody is talking about and what you're hearing. I happen to live in California. California, you can say a lot of things about it, but the state is absolutely mandating that municipalities stop blocking residential in either commercial spaces or even with ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So we have a different thing going on in California, which makes this a little bit easier, but it still can be incredibly hard. You do not want to be the person owning a piece of property suing the city. It is not.
So, they just don't want
to.
Yeah. So if you go back and look at the news and what's been printed, and if the city has or the municipality has taken a stance where they're going to litigation, that's a really good sign that you do not want to be there. The secondary thing is I will spend, it doesn't take forever, but I will spend time to go to or visit with the head of planning and zoning of that entity. I will just talk to him or her. I will simply have a conversation. Nobody does that. And I have had people come up to me or say, whatever you want, I'm going to help you do this. They're not doing that because they want me or the people that I work with to make a lot of money. It's that exactly what you said. I understand what their problems are. I'm helping them solve it. And I see them as a human being in relationship, not some person that's going to block something. It's they meet that, it's golden. And then, sure, there have been times that we have spoken to mayors because they're talking about how they want housing, they want their downtowns to be revitalized. This is a tragedy, what's happening. And it's only going to get worse because all of these vacant properties are, people just they cannot keep them vacant. Yeah. So 9 times out of 10, 100% know which municipality is going to support this well before the deal is struck.
Love that. Now let's talk about a little bit of construction, right? One of your recommendations is when you're evaluating it to look at if there were upgrades for the past 50 years. Share with us why is the case and how you can get in a really like a deep hole here with construction if you're looking to make a conversion that the building hasn't been touched for more than a century. So let's talk about construction in terms of conversions. Why within the 50-year mark?
Yeah, so as I had alluded to, I have the privilege of living in California, and one of the things that we have are the toughest building codes in the United States. So building code requirements are something that I pay a lot of attention to. If a building has been upgraded within the last 10, 15 years, they will most likely have had to bring up the entire structure to life safety code at that time. So here in California, we have seismic or earthquake requirements. And so we want, if we have a 100-year-old building, they did a massive upgrade, rehab within the 10, 15 years, they're going to have brought it up to the code at that point. It's generally when you touch anything, you just have to bring it up. So I like that piece. I like looking at buildings that aren't as beautiful as they could be. 100-year-old building brings a lot of issues. But I like 25-year-old buildings or buildings that have been rehabbed. One project I'm working on right now started off as a retail space. It went to a restaurant, the bottom half. It went to law firm offices, and now we're converting it to residential single-family housing. And I love that, because in the last 10 to 15 years, they brought everything up to code. Now, all we're going to be doing is put it non-load bearing walls. We're not going to touch anything. We design so that we absolutely do not cause more work for us. So
I love that.
I love that too.
Speaking my love language. In terms of financing, it's a little tricky, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, because certain lenders, right, even though the goal is to have all residential income, they have, it's a different type of loan when it's mixed use. So how do you go about it? In my experience, what we did is that we had an agreement that once the conversion was completed, that's when we will close. So all the stars aligned, and then our lender landed on the not the assumption, but the numbers based on 3 residential. I want to get your experience on that, because a lot of women are listening, say, okay, how about on the how would I get the funding, considering that the bottom line, the bottom or the entire building is vacant, not producing?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is how to get financing or lending based on this type of idea. So my experience has been, if we're working with a vacant building in which it has not been rented and is not rented right now, commercial is always going to be looking at your cash flow. So I happen to work in areas where housing demand is incredibly high. The rental will be much, much more attractive if it is converted to an apartment or residential. And lenders do like this in this area. I can't speak up for every area, but we have fairly significant issues that are going on because people have had long-term leases for office or retail, right? During the pandemic, they were either paying some of it or partial of it. Those leases are coming up. The tsunami of crises in empty office spaces is yet to happen. We are at the start of it. We are not at the apex of it, because employers are not going to renew the same type of office space as they have before, because there's either the hybrid of people working part-time in an office or not at all. Owners have vacant property. They're not going to re-rent it. It's not going to happen as is. And everybody wants a different solution. So if we get the property well under market value because it's empty and vacant as an office space, we buy it at that price point. We can get financing, hopefully, by arguing about what the value will be. We convert, not incredibly expensive, quickly, then soon, very, very soon, it will be fully occupied, and then perhaps refinance on that, at that basis. So that's, I'm not an advisor for how to make a deal, but that's the way I look at this. And I think that we're at the very beginning stages of this. I think people will catch on, but right now, there's zero competition for purchasing the most ideal empty commercial space to convert. Zero.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you said something really powerful. I just want to make a mention to, because I just recorded, we just recorded a mini-sode about supply and demand. You said when the housing demand is high, right? So you have to find markets. It seems so obvious, but there's a mix, right? You're mixing where the housing demand is so high and there's just not enough of housing for people to live, where they want to live and how they want to live. That's the markets we need to be going after, and that have these vacant properties. You find a market that could find, those two pieces, you're probably going to find some great opportunities. And so I think we overcomplicate. I think that might be obvious, but I want to just say it because there is a supply and demand piece to all of this, where other markets we're going into, and I can say this in the South, the supply is so high. Right. The supply is so high that properties and units are sitting vacant. That's the market. So there's again, I'm not an expert on supply and demand, but you want to be mindful of what's happening and what the demand is. And when the housing demand is so high and people just can't find an apartment to live in, that's like light bulb, how can I solve that problem? And I think as investors, we need to solve problems of housing. You're going to be effective in this business if you solve people's problems, not be like, I want to buy a rental and I just can't find any. Solve people's problems and you'll probably do great in this market. So I just wanted to really put a pin in that and also connect it to the supply and demand that I recorded.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
Because the other thing I absolutely love right now, and everybody seems to hate, is that interest rates are going up. I get there's all sorts of problems with that. The number one problem is that people cannot afford to purchase a house right now. A lot of people, especially the first-time homeowners. So what happens then? The rental market is going up higher and higher. So the more the interest rates go up, your rental demand is going up. So it's something to closely watch. 2 years ago, rental demand wasn't as high because people could purchase a home. They cannot now. And so this demand is, or this market precisely is a perfect opportunity to purchase something that to your point, you do want to do the research to make sure that you're going to be able to rent it for the price point that it makes sense for the investment, but know that we are at an inflection point in real estate. And when people are like, oh, it's a terrible time to buy, like, it's a great time to buy. Buy what other people don't want to buy and then rent it. And if the numbers work out, it's excellent.
It's funny, right? Because now in my head, I'm virtually walking through downtown and I already know at least 2 properties that now I want to look at it differently because they've been sitting there.
You mean in your town?
Yes.
Oh yeah. It's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the same thing here where I live.
No, but now I'm going to drive there differently because those are very obvious. They've been sitting there for quite some time.
Yeah.
Maybe I should visit inside to just go to the next step there because they're in a great location. And I think that this is something that the opportunity is always there. The opportunities are always available. We just need to be able to look at it and see it, right? And especially, I believe that, as you were saying, the competition is not there. And I also think, Beth, that for women, we're masters on figuring out things and say, oh, great, it fits those 3 boxes over here, but this is going to be a conversion. Once women understand that they did one conversion, they know the quote unquote, the recipe, the process, we can duplicate this much more considering the market that we're in right now. So conversion, I don't hear a lot about conversion because I think, and that might piss off some people, people just want to get in and out and easy peasy, right? But I think that once they understand that, one, this is a great strategy for what's going on in the market, if, as Beth said, right, you get an under market value because it's been sitting there forever. You're solving somebody's problem and you see the demand. You're solving a housing crisis problem. You're also resolving a crime violence problem because empty properties are just not good for the city. So all around. But Beth, why do you think we're not talking about this a lot?
Yeah, I think that the reason why we're not talking about it a lot is that I think that people are just wishing and hoping that everything's going to go back just the way it was before. And that a lot of property owners have said, I just need to get through a couple of years of the pandemic. Then I'm going to be able to just make the money I made before by office or retail. The past is over. That is gone. And we have a lot of people, I think, that are holding on to that. So I think that cities have the same problem of a lot of commercial real estate owners, and they're hoping that some solution will come. The solution they thought was going to come, I don't think is coming.
Yeah.
The other thing that I loved when you said, when you were thinking about your town. So when I think about towns, I do the same thing. But what I tend to do is look at who's trying to rent their property and they haven't been able to rent it for 2 to 3 years. That's who I want to buy from. I do not want to buy from somebody who's already decided they want to sell, generally, because it's a whole nother strategy. I look at every single rental as a possibility of a purchase. It's not that I wouldn't look at a for sale, but a for sale, they're already down the path.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying folks that have commercial space that are trying to rent it, it's not for sale, but it's vacant. That's what you're saying, are the better ones to go after than, say, properties that are just on the market for sale. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So I look at like LoopNet is super easy for people just to bounce on. You don't have to have a membership. Look at what's been for rent for 2 to 3 years. Just look at that. How long can that person hold it vacant?
Not long.
They know they can't sell it vacant very well. So you come in, you've already looked at it, you've talked to the municipality, you know you're going to be able to convert it. It's the right type. You've done your homework, and you say, I'm here to give you a solution. I will purchase your property from you.
You know, the funny thing about the 2 properties that I that I have in my head, so their sign, they have something that's very common. It says for sale or rent, which I think is the worst strategy ever, because it's telling me
just take it from me. Take it from me.
Just do something about this, right? And it's been there. It's been there for the time that I've been here over here. It's been there. So
I know what Unjust is doing after this episode.
Oh, going downtown. Oh God.
I love this. And I want to ask one more question, more technical question, because we're doing a we're doing a development in a city, an urban community in New Jersey. We've been working on a long time, but it's happening. And I think for so many of these conversions or new development, parking comes up a lot as a concern from the people who live around there, from the city. Just parking is like one of the most favorite conversations.
And trash. Right?
What's
parking
that? And trash. So I know you shared a couple of things in prep for today, a couple like do's and don'ts, or just like if you were looking at an opportunity, just to get your thoughts on parking and how to, because it is a downtown, right? So the thinking you're not going to have this enormous lot, but it is something that comes up a lot for people who are developing. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts, what we can do to mitigate those.
Yeah. So 1 or 2 things to think about, and this is another reason that I love the conversion of downtowns, is when you have office space, you're not necessarily always thinking about, do I have parking right there? It could be parking is a half a block away in a municipal plot. So what I think about a lot with it is not everybody's going to have a car. Not everybody wants to have a car. Not every municipality is going to require that you have parking. This is everything to do with your homework. If you're working with a city or a town that said there's no way you can put residential in without 1.5 parking spaces and you have no parking spaces, we'll figure out your solution before you purchase and start. Because that could, that you are saying it correctly. You don't want something like that to inhibit your conversion. Here in California, if you're within 1.5 mile of public transportation, you do not have to offer parking, any parking for residential units. That's California. I am not as familiar with every other state or county, but that's a good question to have in advance. And my assumption that everybody wants to have a car and a parking spot is completely wrong. The younger generation, fewer and fewer people are even getting driver's licenses. And this is the value proposition of these rental properties. You can live, you can work, you can be in a town. Why do you need a car? Now, if you do need a car And somehow one of the ones I'm working on right now, there's a municipal parking spaces half a block away. We would put that as part of the rental agreement, but unless it's being mandated by the city, I do not worry about parking.
And the way to get around that could just be, again, meeting with the zoning officer or the economic development officer and just getting a sense of their parking kind of criteria, if you will, or their parking kind of rules,
Right.
I guess.
Right. But here's another tip. If someone says, no, you have to have that, or you can say, are you sure? Is there any exceptions? I can't tell you how many times people have said you need to have a setback from the sidewalk for your front entrance. And I say, well, are you sure? I see this residential 2 blocks away that didn't do it. Well, we gave them an exception. Okay, yes, please. I'll take that as well.
Thank you.
I love
Thank you
that.
for letting me know about exceptions.
Yes.
So if you've got nothing else from this episode, 2 questions you have to start asking is, are you sure? And are there any exceptions? I love that. That's great. That's great. Beth, this has been wonderful. I selfishly, you've gotten me and our Justice wheels turning. I think this afternoon, instead of meeting together, right, we're going to be sourcing some deals in our towns. But no, this has been excellent. And I think a great start, because it is about solving problems and it's about taking distressed properties off of people's hands. That's what we're in the business to do. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that. I don't think they even realize that sometimes when they're struggling to make projects work. Well, if they're not penciling out, that's why. Those folks are not distressed enough. There's not enough of a solving of a problem. So love what you've been doing here today, and I'm excited to talk further with you. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you and connect with you further?
Sure. So the company that I own is called VADU, VADU. The website is myvadu, myvadu.com. And you can people can pop in on that website and see what we're up to, what we're doing, and contact me. All my information is on there. I am super happy and excited to talk about this because I find it fascinating, and this is how I will talk about all the time. As both of you say, women are particularly good in real estate. We're exceptionally good at being able to build homes and to understand what it means to have a place to live at all different stages of life. And I personally have done quite well in real estate, and there's nothing more that I'd like than to help others, especially women, say, look, I can do this as well.
Love that, Beth. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And by the way, all that information you guys can find on our show notes. So the first question is, what's the most transformational book you ever read?
I think that I read a lot, but the one that I've just read recently is Living Untethered by Michael Singer. And it's so much about living in the present moment and really living fully and not being so worried about what might happen in the future or what happened in the past, but really our powers right now and what we're choosing to do now.
So I finished that book, and that's the one that I share with you and Matt, Liz.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? When books start coming up again and again.
I know. I'm just like, all right, I gotta put this on my list. I can't get it right now because I'm reading a bunch and I'm already overwhelmed, but I love that. It's great.
Second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to live a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
So I think that the most powerful routine that I have is to be grateful for what I do have. And so that allows me to be balanced. And I live in a beautiful home, and I have part of it is a rental. And 3 women came to be at the rental, and they said, what did you ever do to be able to get this place? And I thought, gosh, I don't wake up every morning and think that. I think, God, the roof needs to be replaced. So I think it's super important to be incredibly grateful for what I have, for what we have. And we can't control everything or anything for that matter, but we can do our best at what we do. So.
Awesome. Last question, which women famous or not, has inspired you the most?
I think Oprah Winfrey. I happen to have been super fortunate to have met her in person about 10 years ago. And I love her story of coming up from the ashes, if you will, reading, being beautiful, and giving so much for other people. Plus, she is so amazing in person. So.
I can imagine. Oh, that's great. Beth, thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and our tribe and audience. So we just appreciate your time so much. So thank you.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.